board meeting of April 8th, 2019 of the Tri-City United Board. We are meeting here in the high school band room, and it is 6 o'clock. Roll call, finalists all present. Thank you everyone for coming. And then administration report. Superintendent Pricer, please.
Thank you. As I share each month, this is our administrative report that comes from each one of our principals and directors in alignment with our 4 strategic directions here at Tri-City United. Gives us a chance to know many of the actions that are happening within our district, and I'll just hit a few of the highlights. So you can see there's an awful lot going on within communications and connections with our city councils and chamber. In community ed, I'm going to hit down into raising capacity. Had over 40 participants for the Minnesota Timberwolves Lynx basketball clinic, which I know is always a very popular event. And it's been really nice to see an increase in our pool rentals this year. We have had 19 since the start of the school year, and that is up from past years. Also, everyone to know that our Summer Kids Zone registration is open, and so go on to our website at www.tcu2905.us, and at the top, please choose Community Ed and the Kids Zone. There's all kinds of activities that go on with that program all summer long, and it's really important for our families and children. Within Tri-City United La Center, I'm going to highlight a bit on the AVID work that continues. As I shared last month, we anticipated to have a number of our elementary teachers heading to Summer Institute for AVID, and that has been confirmed. So that's very exciting to see that moving along. And even some of their work within Custom Planners for All Students is a huge step into a school-wide AVID, very early in the stages. At Tri-City United Montgomery, as we know, our third quarter report cards reports went out, and at Tri-City United Montgomery in our 7th grade, we had 47% of the students make the AB honor roll, and 54% of our 8th grade students. So good work and finish strong is what we always say. At Tri-City United District Office, or in the business office, this area here, as Ms. Kopp and Ms. Rozier have been really working for a very long time on this process, and it's going to come to fruition. So we're pretty excited about it, to be having our JMC system be able to do online enrollment, get rid of all those papers, not only for our new families, but also then as the verification each year. So those of you who are parents, you know when you come to open house or the start of the year, and there you are, filling those forms out again. Our goal here is for that to be an online process, and we're hopeful that that moves as smoothly as it is anticipated to. At our Tri-City United High School, hitting a few different areas, the ACT test did take place here on April 2nd, and we had 119 juniors testing, and that is at about 142 juniors, so we do have some that would still have a chance for the makeups on April 24th. I want to thank Palmer Bus for their donation of the busing from the high school to the Legion, and to the Montgomery Lions for the snacks, which I know they really appreciate. We also had our art club. It's an annual art night that takes place for grades 7 through 12, and that happened with our TCU High School on March 22nd. We had 30 plus students, and it's really fun to see not only our current staff, but also our retired staff and Maureen Gunderson coming back to provide opportunities for our students. At TCU Lonsdale, a good reminder for at all of our sites, we do have reading core and math core tutors, and we have been selected to have those positions in our district. We are looking for reading and math core for next year, and so if you're looking for a way, you know, it's not a huge wage, but it is a little bit of a tuition in repaying student loans, or, you know, for grandparents, you can gift this award to a child or grandchild as well. So could be something that someone's looking for a few hours, and certainly very rewarding. Also, within our Raise the Capacity for Engagement, I'm going to touch on last month, Tri-City United Lonsdale became certified as a seizure smart school. They had representatives from the Minnesota Epilepsy Foundation come and present to all of their staff during an early release on what to look for with seizures, how to intervene, and what proactive measures to take. So really do appreciate they're reaching out for that type of a training. And finally, within our food service, this is April promotions are National Nutrition Month, really focusing on salads and greens. And one of the things I do want to highlight is summer meals are coming back to Tri-City United at both our TCU La Center and TCU Montgomery sites. We are starting the day after school's out. And really give credit to our food service staff and to Amy Sauter for leading this. We've already had, for example, Head Start has asked if they could continue on with some additional days at our Tri-City United La Center primary building after the end of the school year and go till at least May 31st. And thankfully for doing the summer meals, we're able to do that so that they're able to continue and getting our age 1 to 18-year-olds in our communities to come and have a free meal for breakfast and for lunch. Lots of things happening and always great stuff at TCO.
Thank you very, very much. High school, student council report. Do we have any members from the student council?
It must be busy again tonight.
Yes, lots of things going on. Next item is the approval of the agenda. I will seek a motion for approval of the agenda, please.
Make a motion.
Motion by Krista,
Second.
second by Kevin. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Then we have the consent agenda. Superintendent Preisler is asked to speak about the policies when we, after the motion and before we vote, so we'll get that information as we move down. Under the consent motion, approval of the minutes from March 11th, 2019 board meeting, March 25th, 2019 special board meeting. Under personnel, new hires, Kathy Schluter, volunteer golf coach, Sarah Costello, senior high band and jazz band, Duane Johnson, long-term sub for the middle school band, Lay Center and Montgomery. Lori Weller, technician, network assistant, and Jen Wallskog, TOSA, mentoring and induction. Employment ending, Shaelyn, Krause, special education paraprofessional, Lonsdale. Jason Hollom, junior high basketball. Greg Feddema, assistant boys basketball coach. Shaun Robbins, middle school earth science and PLTW Montgomery. Kirsten Brown, special education paraprofessional in the high school, and Brian Michael, head wrestling coach. Contracts, we have the technology network assistant going from 18-19 and the 19-20 school year. The policies, these are the first reading. The employee background checks, school district curriculum and instruction goals, curriculum development, graduation requirements, school district testing, planning and procedures, testing, accommodation, modification, and exemptions for IEPs, section 504, planning LEP students. School district systems accountability, assistant of students' achievement. On the next page, staff development standards, acceptance of gifts, and the forms for the acceptance of gifts. This was distribution of the obsolete equipment and materials. Approval of the bills in the amount of $1,756,051.31. The financial report. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Marcia,
Second.
second by Michelle. Superintendent Preisler, before we vote, go ahead.
Yeah, just want to give a little overview on some of the aspects of the policies. These were all reviewed by our policy committee and bringing forward as a recommendation for first reading. In our 404 employee background checks, the only change to this is an addition from a should to a may to try and provide a little flexibility within non-student supervisory types of positions in activities, such as ticket takers, line judges, those types of things. So the district would still retain the right to conduct an employee background check, but it gives us the may in case we determine that it would not be necessary. Again, this would be non-student supervisory, so that it is not a time where that kind of a role is alone with students. All of these 600 series of revisions are recommended by MSBA and in accordance with federal law of Every Student Succeeds Act, so we don't really have many choices within those. In the 706 acceptance of gifts, in our current policy, it does refer to a resolution of accepting gifts, and so we have added a section to be able to conduct that at each meeting where it's necessary. So this would be a resolution, and basically what it would be is that we would indicate the date, the donor, the item and nature of the donation, and the amount, and definitely with a gracious thank you to those making those donations. So this would really cover pretty much any donation, and the school board would have the determination of whether you want to accept it or not. Please note that in our policy, the resolution does need to be approved 2/3 of the members. It's not 4 or 3 + 1 type of thing. Also knowing that sometimes when someone makes a donation, they ask to remain anonymous, and so that may be the case at times, as we want to respect those wishes as well. The only other part here in the 802, this again comes forward from some state statute changes that the level of a disposition of obsolete equipment raises a threshold from $100,000 to $175,000. And again, fitting with state statute. But those are the policies that we're bringing forward first reading, and we would need to have a second reading for final approval.
Any questions of Superintendent Preisler? If not, we have a motion by Marcia and seconded by Michelle to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Titan Pride Awards. Mr. Johnson, please.
Definitely not. Dr. Preisler, members of the board, tonight I'm going to recognize 24 specific individuals. Last month you probably remember that I had another long list of just members that were all conference. It's a credit to our student body that we have right now. We've made it tougher to be recognized here in this setting, with last month only recognizing the all conference, not even the honorable mention. So tonight we are going to recognize our state participants. This isn't even all of them. These are the ones that were above the kind of the elite of the elite. So it's kind of our higher level group, and that, like I say, that says a lot for the number of kids that we have receiving these awards, and we can actually have to limit the number of state entries we're going to recognize. So with that, I would like to call the BPA state individuals up here first. Actually, looks like my list is not in order, so. Aaron Baker. Brandon Balma. Cole Pagan. Ellie Singleton. And Gina Davis, and Vanessa Montez de Oca. Okay, along with this being a pretty fantastic group, it also says a lot about the fact that they're not here, because with the storms coming up, we are cramming events in. We have track, we have baseball, we have softball going. We're rescheduling things from later in the week to put to tomorrow just so we can get them in. So a lot of our kids are multi-talented and multitasked, but with that, congratulations.
It's not your first time.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Thank you.
Weightlifters.
For your efforts.
Is that any of my weight lifters here? Oh, there we go. This is not here. We have two state weightlifters we're going to recognize. Alexis Freeman, the first one, and our state champion, Mike Fisher.
Congratulations.
Hockey.
Congratulations.
Yes, no gunners here.
Congratulations.
It's all right. A cool one. Next to me here, our senior goaltender for the state hockey team, and that was kind of took over the school by storm when they qualified, and we were able to send 6 buses up and cheer on this guy and Zach Wendorf, but right now, Gunnar Domini, state entrant for hockey.
Congratulations for the power.
Blake. Blake here.
Congratulations.
Next individual I want to recognize is part of our adapted floor hockey team. We're combined with New Prague, but it's a good co-op we got, and Blake is one of the main members of that team. I was fortunate enough to go up and watch him up in Bloomington a few times, and a fantastic player and a big part of that team. So congratulations.
Congratulations, nice job.
Robotics. This is dedication here. Game, even though they're playing baseball currently, but our robotics team had a fantastic season. We even had individuals down at the national tournament this past weekend, but this is our main group. It's our biggest group, so it's a fun group to have followed throughout the year. Xavier, Nick Duban, he's not here. Hayden Arndt, good grief. Dawson, Drema. We're gonna go both of them.
Graves is in here.
Just wait, there's Jake, I'll call you at the same time. Stuart. Congratulations. Brent. Congratulations. Ashley. The one girl. Nick. Congratulations.
Nice job.
Nice job.
Nice job.
Nice job.
Viviana.
Nice job. Thank you for your effort. Good job.
And our last individual, she wasn't able to be here tonight, and that is Viviana Velasquez, and she was chosen the best in sight at our most recent art competition. So pretty great honor, but unfortunately not able to be here. So thank you.
Thank you, Chad, for all of that. Open forum. Brenda, do we have? Oh. Moving on then to informational items. First one, Career Tech Education Curriculum Review. Yep. Matt?
And they go.
See Mr. Schmidt out there as well.
Chrysler members of the board. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to give you a little bit of an update on some of the curriculum work that we've done over the course of the year. This year on our curriculum cycle is the CTE, the Career and Technical Education Review. Mr. Schmidt was kind enough to be here with me today. We had other educators who weren't feeling well, so they stayed home tonight. How do I get to the... How do I click on this? I'm clicking on it, nothing's happening.
Oh, edit maybe?
Edit attachment, see what happens.
No. Cancel.
I did it. Okay. So as part of our review process, every 6 years we go through our different curriculum areas in order to make sure that we are up to date, that things are going along in the way that we would wish, and then to make sure that if there's any large changes that we might want to make, that we would do so. Obviously, the biggest change that the CTE department was looking to make was in terms of electives and offerings, and we came, I believe, in January and connected with that in there. So every 6 years through each subject area, we go to revisit our standards and align our power benchmarks. That's what we promise our students will be great at when they leave these classrooms. We identify any best practices and look into anything that might be new or different than what we had before. We clarify our assessments to ensure that what we are hoping to assess, we are actually assess, and then identifying any resources that we need to achieve the standards. So this is the outcome of that year-long process. At the beginning of the review, we identify our strengths and our gaps. Obvious strengths in our CTE department is very high level of project-based structures. Most of these classes are run by students, and students are doing things. They are not sitting and watching things being done, but they are wrists and elbows deep into whatever it is that's going on inside of the classroom itself. Experiential learning, again, that our students are getting out into the real world and applying real world concepts into what they're learning. They're getting the theory behind it and then doing something with it, which is our hands-on experiences. We also have articulation credits where our students have the option to meet certain guidelines and get college credit through various agreements that we have, and multiple opportunities for student career exploration. This is the real world and where our students are interested in going. So if they're interested in, with Mr. Schmidt, going into kind of an egg field, then they have multiple opportunities to get an idea of which type of egg, where would they like to be, and how can they gain the skills in order to be there. Some of the gaps that we had, again, we had the elective structure, which we looked into and made some recommendations on and made some changes to earlier this year. Pathways for student planning, so that as our students come into 9th grade and as they move through 9th through 12th grades, they have an idea of what courses would best suit them for whatever their post-secondary plan might be, whether that's going to post-secondary education at a college or university, whether that's a career path itself. We also want to make sure and firm up our use of personal learning plans. We need to have a personal learning plan that our students create, and that includes their aptitudes, their capabilities, and their interests, and then making a plan for their high school career. So we looked a lot into how do we help support that and then use that more than once in their high school career. And then deepening use of technology and learning where appropriate. We took a look at what might it look like to do more of a blended sort of course, moving into even some hybrid courses where students might have some interaction time with an educator, but then have a lot of individual work time as well. So really getting them ready with the aptitudes that they might need. So when it comes to our project-based and experiential learning, Mr. Schmidt, if you talk a little bit about the investing in your life, as you'll be teaching half of that class.
In the past, there was really 2 courses. I had my independent living, which was an 18-week course, and Stacy Lindblom had personal finance. We're going to combine the 2. She's going to have everyone for 9 weeks, take care of the financial aspect of it, and I will have them all for 9 weeks for more of the hands-on. In that we do sheetrock stuff, we look at basic car stuff. Nothing that they will become mechanic and proficient at, but yet can survive when they get out there on their own. So it'll be like a 9-week flip between groupings of them.
We'll also keep working to continue our student learning tied to articulation so that they can leave with as many credits in a post-secondary experience, like a South Central College. I think we have quite a few through. And then branching into some blended and hybrid experiences where our students are really in the driver's seat of their learning, where they're designing their projects and connecting in with what and how they learn best. When it comes to implementing some of our standards and skills, we're going to focus in on our personal learning plan, so career exploration. We moved earlier in the year down to 7th and 8th grade, where they'll create that personal learning plan, and then looking into having pathways at our high school and revisiting those student plans multiple times. And in addition to with our workforce coordinator, developing some on-the-job experiences, some internships, job shadows, where our students go beyond our walls and really dive into what a job might look like. So we have 2 new courses, Intro to Ag Food Natural Resources and Intro to Wood Fabrication. We have a new shop coming up where that Intro to Wood Fabrication will occur. And both of these require some investment into materials and some supplies so that our students have the depth of experience that these courses can offer. With our existing courses, we're really just looking to update our curriculum resources and then additional development of our learning experiences. So continuing to look at what the student experience in these classes are to make sure that they're at the depth that our standards and articulations can make them. So an overall investment in capital of $8,550, and supplies, one-time supply purchases of $450, curriculum writing $5,600, and then our subscriptions, and this is over a 6-year cycle. Things like in our accounting, we use an online software to give students an idea of what that would look like, as well as MCIS, which is where our personal learning plan comes into. And I believe some of that is offset by our Perkins dollars as well. So this will get us to the next level of depth in our career and tech education and get our students the experiences that will help them to prepare for the world outside of high school. I'll take any questions.
I know I asked this when you guys presented before. What about those 8th graders currently?
Mm-hmm.
How are we working the career explorations into their world before they go up into that freshman grade?
Our idea right now is to take the MCIS, which is one of those subscriptions, and it has a personal learning plan attached into it, and moving that into the 9th grade advisory time, the grade level advisory time, throughout the course of the year. So they'll develop that then in 9th grade instead of the full Exploring Careers course. And then from then on, our 7th and 8th graders will have that as they come through junior high.
Thank you.
And then that gives our educators also an idea of what's in MCIS and what those personal learning plans are, so that we can really go to a next deeper level of making those intentional.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions, board? No, thank you guys very, very much. Appreciate it. Well done. Next one, social and emotional curriculum review. Matt hasn't moved, but Emily is going to join.
So the other subject area that we had on curriculum review this year was counselors, social workers, and school sites. And as we kind of dove into what they felt their needs were, as we looked into what might be clarified better and find additional supports for, social emotional learning really came out to the forefront. And so we designed a less traditional sort of curriculum review, more diving into how do we help to support what's already going on and create some structures so that we can, again, take it to our next level. So you want to talk a little bit about our process as we went through?
Well, this is brand new. Being counselors in the district, it's hard for us to get together, to get out of our buildings. So we've only met twice, but I feel like we've made some really good progress. What we really want to focus on is the whole child, not just the academic, but the personal and social, emotional needs of the student. And so we really boiled it down to the 5 competencies of social emotional learning. We're really looking at self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And so we've spent time trying to figure out what does that look like at each grade level, or we really have gone to grade bands, so like K2, 3, 5, I think we did. and so on and so forth. So we've spent a lot of time developing some I can statements and getting some essential questions from those I can statements and moving forward with that.
I've got a question. There was self-awareness twice. Can you explain why that is? What is the difference?
Social awareness
I'm
should be
sorry.
the second one. It might have been a typo, the one.
No, you're right. I misread it. Thank you.
But those two are very interrelated in the idea of being aware of you and your actions and how they affect others, and then where others are feeling around you, if I can paraphrase that right. And so some of the findings as we talked, as we met, and as we did some research, is TCU educators are really, really invested in social emotional learning already. One of the gaps that we found was that we didn't have a common language across the board. So where social awareness is one, or sorry, self-awareness is one that we'll kind of track through a little bit tonight, our educators might have called it a couple of different things. Or they might have had an activity that they did that was a social awareness activity. But then as they talked about it to another person, some of that got a little bit muddy and a little bit lost. And so part of what we wanted to do was to create a structure of some common language so that as we meet across district and even across just the grade bands, as we looked at them, our teachers would know what we meant by it, as well as be able to talk a little bit more deeply about it and in supporting students. Our teachers have always been really committed to building student relationships. Anytime that I ask what does it take for students to learn, relationships is the first thing out of our educators' mouths. So it's really important to make sure that we have some strategies and some supports for our educators. And we found that through our PBIS and our Leader in Me structures. But again, the level of intentionality in that we found a little bit missing, where if we have some common language, some common questions and experiences, and some common strategies, we'll be able to go to another depth and another piece. And so we worked on guidance for some vertical sort of similarities, so that as we go through, our students are getting similar, but not same. So we have a K2 band, we have a 3-4 band, a 5-6, a 7-8, and a 9-12. And so we tracked the I can statement of something, and I believe this one was, I can identify my feelings and how they affect others. And so we wrote a couple of questions that a teacher could ask a student in the hallway during a lesson, as they're in a lunch line, and they could talk a little bit more about that self-awareness at any point. So instead of just, here's a lesson that you can teach once, how do we make this something where our educators can ask these questions at any time when they see a student might be a little bit low in an area? So as we went, as Emily said, we identified some essential outcomes and I can statements, as well as some questions that our educators can ask. We looked at some sample activities and resources. So again, if an educator is seeing that many of their students in their class might be a little bit low in one area, they can have an activity that will band them together and give them an option to teach that a little bit more explicitly. One of the other things that as I talked to other teaching and learning coordinators around the area that I heard really, really loud and clear is educators themselves need to feel this process, need to be able to identify some of these within themselves. And so investing in or connecting to some toolboxes for our educators. We found online in iCell and in Inspire Ed, which are both platforms to help educators identify within these these 5 bands, as well with different videos and some activities that we can incorporate pretty easily in professional development. And will be ways that our educators can sort of self-reflect and have something to talk about with their students as they go through this process. So really our recommendation here is we'd like to complete our organizer by grade level for our educators' reference. We'd like to connect these areas to PBIS and our Leader in these structures. Both of these are really built for character education as well as social emotional learning, and providing some common language, some common questions and activities will only bolster some of the efforts that we're already going through in here. And then to make social emotional learning an intentional part of our educator and our student days through professional development, staff meetings, as well as moving into how we interact with and support our students on a daily basis. And so for this one, really the only cost comes in with summer curriculum writing. And it's really just one day to finish up the work that we've already begun and to organize things in a way that our kindergarten teachers will have a pack of things that they can go to. We'll make sure that it's digital as well so that they will have videos that they can pull up and show. And making those resources then available, as well as we'll need some time, and we might take some early release time if it's not directly connected with our counselors and social workers to review and revamp if we find one question or one area is not quite working for us. We can then, we have the structure now in place that we can dive a little deeper. And so that curriculum writing is really the only thing we need is some time.
So will every teacher then be trained and have, I mean, is that the goal? So that's a huge goal.
Yeah, long-term, have some training in each of these 5 so that they can speak to it. Both of those educator toolbox pieces are online blended learning experiences that our educators can go through. So we can pull a self-awareness video and then an activity into a staff development time. Say at the beginning of the year during workshops, we can inject that into our early releases, as well as those are things that our educators themselves can go through as they're seeing different needs in their classrooms. Not really looking at any sort of a certification for every teacher, but really a competency that they feel, understand, and can support students as they go.
Matt and Emma, if you go back to the one where you had the different bands.
Sure.
A little bit further. Can
Oh,
you go,
are you
I think one.
The 5,
yeah, there's
yeah.
the 5, yes. So we see those K2, 3, 4. In those self-awareness, self-management, is like a K2 just focusing on one of those 5, or will they in a given year try to hit all 5?
Goal is to hit all 5.
They're going to try to, okay.
This will really fit quite well with our profile of a graduate work as well, within those characteristics and qualities. I mean, I'm seeing those words, it fits right with what we found from the survey. And that wasn't even planned. It just shows the importance of it all.
Yeah.
So, great work.
Yeah, and it goes along with PBIS and everything else we do anyway. And that was a big goal of ours, is to not add something more to the educator's plate that they're having to do a whole lot more training and take time, but to really find the ways that many of them are already doing a lot of these things. We just need to find that common language so that it's understood by all. I like it.
Any other questions, board? Thank you. Very, very well done.
Yes.
Next one, looks like Emily gets to stay, and the TCU Travel Club 2021 trip proposal.
Bear with me. I don't know how to do this. Double click. Is there a present button somewhere? So just scroll. Okay, perfect. So the TCU Travel Club is traveling to Australia and New Zealand this summer, and we have 15 people traveling on this trip. And so we're already looking ahead for our next option. And through some talk with students and everything, Spain kind of ended up being a big one. And so doing a lot of research, trying to find out what could we get the best value for our money. I decided looking at the Spain, Portugal, and France option for students. Looking at June of 2021, so we have a lot of time to do fundraising. It'll be 15 days traveling throughout the 3 countries there. We'll leave Minneapolis and head on over to Portugal, land in Lisbon, and see some of the sites around that area. Spending a couple days there. There are optional extra excursions for students and travelers to attend if they're interested in that as well. From Lisbon, we traveled to Evra and Algarve and see some of the sights and things there. From Algarve to cross the border into Spain and see Sevilla and Costa del Sol, visit the famous Sevilla Cathedral. Optional excursion of going to Gibraltar for the students. Continuing on to Granada, seeing the Alhambra, which is a very famous site. Continuing on to Valencia, having a walking tour there and seeing some of the sights. Continuing on to Barcelona. Students will have the option of adding a flamenco evening if they're interested there. From there, continuing on to France, Montpellier, Provence, Saint-Tropez, going on to French Riviera, visiting Monaco and Ez, and seeing a lot of the sights there. And day 15, heading for home. So a two-week trip with lots of things planned in, lots of sites and tours, and EF does a fantastic job of keeping students very busy, so there's always something going on, and we're exhausted by the end of the day and always sleep very well. So what's included on the trip, all of the airfare and transportation, everything, busing and all of that, are 13 nights in hotels with private bathrooms. They do guarantee us private bathrooms because that's not always the case in Europe. We do get breakfast and dinner every day. Lunch would be on our own, but the breakfast and dinner are included. We have 5 different sightseeing tours led by local guides, and we have 3 tours with our tour director. All of the entrances to everything we see are included. We do have a full-time tour director who is with us from the moment we get to the airport, and they are with us until the very end, and they drop us right back off at the airport. So it's always comforting to know that there's somebody there in case anything, we have any questions or anything should happen. They do hire expert local guides to really give us the cultural insight into every place that we see. Students do have the option to earn either high school or college credit, and I'll get into that a little bit more too by going on this trip. EF is always there. They have offices all over the world, so they're very well connected and easily accessible. They do have a 24-hour emergency service line, and they do have the Peace of Mind program, which I really, really like. Because our world is so, you never know what's going to happen. If something should happen where they feel like it might not be safe to travel somewhere we're going, we can change locations, absolutely no questions asked. They're very good about that. They're always keeping an eye on safety for travel. Students, for absolutely free, can choose to earn high school credit for going on this trip. They do have an online course that students do a lot of pre-tour planning on something that they want to study. And they do have some flexibility in that, so they can really kind of pick what is of interest to them. And they do on-tour learning with that, and then a post-tour project. And they're able to earn 1 semester elective credit through that for no cost, which is really awesome. They can also opt to earn college credit through Southern New Hampshire University. 3 college credits for $215. So it's a pretty good deal there. It's an online course, Interculturalism and Global Exploration. So it's similar to the high school, but of course a little bit more in depth to get that college credit if that's something they're interested in. The cost for the tour, which does include everything except lunch and spending money, is $4,545 for the students. They do have the option of adding the global travel protection, which if something happened and they weren't allowed or they weren't able to go on the trip, they could get their money refunded. That also includes if luggage was lost on the way, they'd get a stipend to buy new items that they need and that kind of thing. So doing all the research, it's a steal of a deal for what you get. That being said, it still is a lot of money, which is why we look to travel every 2 years so students can have lots of time to do fundraisers. Some of the fundraisers we sell hot chocolate at the home football games. We sell butter braids, pastry puffins during the year. We work in concession stands for the home games at TCU. We do outside things like bagging groceries at Cub Foods, tip night at Pizza Ranch. Students do lawn mowing, babysitting, you name it. I've had some students who don't do any fundraising and other students who've earned almost their entire trip by spending 2 years working on all the different ways to make money. So that is what we're proposing for our trip 2 years from now. I'd be happy to
Emily, is that
answer questions.
a certain number of students based on, no?
No, we'll take as many as want to go. Yeah.
Same travel program that you guys have been going through, right?
Yeah, I do. I've looked at several programs, and I've always chosen to travel through EF Educational Tours. I just think they do a phenomenal job. It is so much education, and I think the students don't always realize that, but they're constantly getting the history and the culture, and it's not a big. They learn a little bit of language. It's not a language immersive program, but everything else that they get, they really get exposed to great things. I've really been impressed with this company.
Any other questions, board?
Looks fun.
Thank you for all your efforts.
I know, like, we all want to go.
Yeah.
Thanks for your work in organizing.
Can you
it.
just take adults?
Yeah.
It does, it costs you like $5,400.
I know, I saw that.
That is a steal deal.
I'm assuming you'd have to have some students going.
They do, you have to have more students than adults.
Oh, okay. The requirements.
Continuing with the travel theme, Mary Dooley is here for the 2020 Germany trip proposal.
Well, I don't really have a presentation, but I can certainly talk about the trip. I've gone as a teacher 5 times. Every time we go, we kind of tweak it and make it, what did the kids really enjoy, what was worthwhile, let's say it's going to be about. So our trip is for June of 2020, so a year and a couple months from now. It is a 16-day trip. We leave Minneapolis on June 15th, and we should return on June 30th. This is scheduled. So we land in Frankfurt, Germany. Basically get to go to a medieval town first, so the city of Rothenburg is our first stop. We spend an overnight there. We get to Nuremberg after that for a few days. And that's a lot of historical, things in Nuremberg itself. So they see the medieval town, a lot of historical things in Nuremberg. Then we get down to Munich, and right outside of Munich is the city of Dachau, which of course is one of the first concentration camps built by the Nazis. So we get to have a tour of that in the morning, and then we do head to Munich for the rest of the day, and for a couple of days in Munich, so we get to do a lot of fun things. The Olympics were held there in 1972, so we go to the Olympic Park, the BMW Worlds, they get to do like a tour of BMW. The Glockenspiel, the shopping, the cathedrals, the castles in the city. So Munich is kind of always a favorite for them. They would leave Munich after a few days, head to Salzburg, Austria. So the birthplace of Mozart, see his birth home. And there's a fortress that's over 1,000 years old. So just to, again, kind of just get a good taste of different things there, and sightseeing, tours, again, cathedrals, castles. After Salzburg, we head through the Alps. Well, actually, we head to Berchtesgaden, not very far away, and go to the Eagle's Nest. It's actually built for Adolf Hitler as a birthday gift. We go up there now; it's a restaurant, but amazing hiking. So we do that for most of the afternoon. We tour a salt mine right outside of Salzburg, Austria. Then we start heading through the Alps in southern Germany. So we're staying mostly in southern Germany, Austria and Switzerland. Get to see some more kind of the famous castles kind of in the middle of southern Germany. Then head to Oberstdorf, amazing hiking. It's in the Bavarian Alps. Get to do a cable car ride up. The kids hike down. There's a glacier lake in the middle of the mountain, basically. So we swim and relax, and there's a restaurant there, and then hike the rest of the way down. So it's like a long hike that the kids enjoy. There's alpine slides. There's just all kinds of different outdoor activities in that area. We get through to Switzerland at that point. A couple stops there, a couple overnights in Switzerland. We get to go to a Swiss cheese factory, kind of see how they make cheese. The kids always think that's pretty cool. And then we go to a Swiss chocolate factory, which kids enjoy even more. So we did that last time, they loved it. The largest waterfall is in Schaffhausen, Switzerland, where the Rhine actually begins. So we see the biggest waterfall. As we go farther north in Triberg in the Black Forest, they see the highest waterfalls. Do that. We stopped at a a wood carving shop, so you just see the master carver sit, and he's about 85 or 90 years old. I've seen and met him on every single trip we've gone on. But he's a 5-generation wood carver. So his name is Hare is his last name. But anyway, he sits and he carves, and every time he sells a cuckoo clock, he signs it. He does chessboards. He's all this. So the kids are just really intrigued by this gentleman. He really talks about his clocks, and if you buy one, he signs it and it hasn't shipped. But kind of a cool experience with that. We get to stay on the Rhine at one point. We get to stay overnight in a few castles. As overnights on the Rhine as we head up toward Frankfurt, and then sadly head for home. But so again, tweaked it to see which spots and which places interest the kids the most for the widest variety, for culturally, for art, history, different museums, cathedrals. We also do a bunch of fundraising. We have, ever since the last 2016 trip was the last time we did this. So for the last few years, we do the concession stands. So we have a lot of money saved up from that in the bank. And we do Cub Foods bagging groceries. We do the Pizza Ranch fundraiser. We've done other things just to earn money. The kids, of course, have to do their jobs and obviously pay for the trip. The trip is $3,379. And that also includes all of the airfare, those 16 nights in the youth hostels, the breakfast, all the suppers, all the entrance fees, the coach bus that we are traveling in, subways or different places, so it covers all transportation. So again, the students just have to pay for their own lunches, and then any extra souvenirs and that. So we try to make it as economical as we can with the youth hostels as opposed to fancier hotels. So we're sharing rooms, usually 2, 4, sometimes up to 6 of them in a room. But really excited about the next trip coming up. Kids are starting to get excited. I said we have to make sure it gets approved and everything's good to go before we can officially start doing the first payments, which they do break into 5 separate payments too, so that we just don't have so much to pay all at once and spread throughout the year. So, I don't know if you have any specific questions.
Do you need chaperones?
There will be 4 adult chaperones, and we're probably going to travel most likely with Eden Prairie. It's nice to have another German-speaking teacher chaperone, so we traveled with Eden Prairie a few times, and also in the past with, Eden Prairie. But just in case something goes wrong, yes, that would be probably 4 chaperones.
It sounds like I went to Germany when I was in high school.
Okay.
Not all that long ago, by the way. Sounds like the same route that we went, only we stayed with a family 1 week. So anyway, bringing back memories.
So is this put together by you or EF or different
Customize
ages?
it. So every time I've done a trip, it's kind of been customized. But again, we travel with either New Prague or we have Eden Prairie as well. But again, kind of customizing it so that the tour that gave us the best price is just, they were more local. They used to be in Rochester, now they're in Montgomery, I believe. But it's called CETA Tours, started by a German teacher actually. So kind of a small travel company. But we didn't travel with CETA last trip, but we did the trip before. So it's kind of between adventure and tours are the 2 that we've gone through. It's kind of a little more kind of local. Others have really good service and answer questions and not too far away for me to go and bring our itinerary or fine-tune things. So
How many kids our students normally go on the trips?
the last trip was 2016, and there were 21 TCUers and then 4 from Eden Prairie. So we went a group of 25.
Wow.
The time before that, there were 21 TCUers and 23 New Praggers. So then we had a group of 46. So typically, right around, if we travel with 18 or 20 or 21 the last few times, I guess that we've got, actually it was Montgomery Lonsdale back in 2010, it must have been. So then we have fewer going, but we get kind of a price break on everything once hit the 25 students. So it's already, we're hoping to go at that price.
Great.
So we do learn an enormous amount more than they realize just being immersed in the culture. So you have to have 2 years of German
Mhm.
to go on the trip, just so they can shop, make their way around, you know, do the lunches, use the language. So,
Sounds like a good question.
okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very, very much. Next item is for information on a snow day legislation overview. Superintendent Preisler?
Yes. Members of the board, I know there was an awful lot of, talk and everything. Really, if you go all the way back to January when we had the severe cold and temperatures, when Governor Walz came out with some statements in regards to snow days. And at that point, most people believed that he was unilaterally being able to say, well, the no district would be penalized for not meeting the minimum requirements of days. And as much as I know his heart was in the right place, legislatively he can't do that. It did need to go through the legislature. And so there was a Senate bill and there was a House bill. They've gone through conference committee. They did bring forward a united bill to the governor, and last week he did sign Senate File 1743 called the Snow Day Relief Bill. But I do think it's important for everyone to know what the bill really is and what it isn't. First of all, the bill is completely permissible. It is not a mandatory bill. So this is a permissible bill for districts who are not going to meet the 2 requirements of state statute, required days and hours. Right now, and what is in the legislature or in the law is that districts need to have 165 student days, and they need to either have 935 instructional hours at the elementary level or 1,020 at the 7 through 12 level. And so you have to meet both of those thresholds. So any district who is not going to meet both of those thresholds would have the permission by the legislature and by the governor to be able to count some of the days off as instructional days. And if they do that, then they need to report to the commissioner the number of days and the hours that they're counting. And they also are highly encouraged to move forward with adopting e-learning days, which for us we called blended learning days. There was also the aspect that if the school district did go with that route of accessing the bill, that they would need to compensate employees or for those days missed, or allow them to make up some hours or make up the hours. Again, recognizing that this bill is permissible and not mandatory, they're really, from the districts in the area that I know of, I don't know of anyone right now who's accessing the bill. There could be possibilities down in Austin, Albert Lee area where they had even more days than us closing, and did not have blended learning or e-learning types of days. So as far as for Tri-City United, we do meet both the threshold in the number of days and the number of hours. As a matter of fact, I even calculated out if we had not been able to access the blended learning 5 days, we would still be above the threshold. Oh, so close, but we would be. And for us, as we said all along, much of this has to do with contract versus required number of days. So where we are right now is that we have 172 days that we have been able to count towards the number of required days. And our high school, because of the 1,020 and a slightly shorter day, we are still 84 hours beyond the 1,020. And when you calculate 84 hours, when I figure that by a 7-hour day, that gives us even 12 days of the hours. So we do meet the thresholds. We would not need to be accessing this bill, but it is one that is important for those who do need to, and in coming up with some plans. I know that we have been contacted by a number of other districts, in particular Mr. Flugum's been contacted by a number of other districts asking for information on our blended learning plan, the work that we did, the analysis we did, the communication we did, the system and the structures, and there's a lot of districts who are looking at that for the future. But just a little overview of what the snow day bill is and what it isn't, and where we stand, and we're in a good place, and let's hope that this storm for the end of the week can stay away and dissipate. I think we've all had enough.
So we're coming on Thursday? maybe?
Last I saw, we have a 68% chance. That's better than 100% last night.
That's right.
So.
See? It's a chance.
And you'll never hear a superintendent say 68% is better than 100. So when it comes to weather, let's get that down even lower. Are there any questions, though?
Thank you for that update. Very
Thanks.
much appreciated. Moving on to building project update. Superintendent Preissler, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask Carl to share a bit. He and I put the presentation together, but give him a chance to share some, again, pictures are worth 1,000 words, right?
Yes. Superintendent Preissler, Chairman Buss, members of the board. My name is Carl Mink. I'm Director of IT and Facilities for Tri-City United Schools. And I'm very pleased to be bringing you the April edition of our project's pictorial update. And we're going to start at the TCU Lonsdale site. One of the things that strikes me as I drive up to the site is look at this nice, new, very appropriate, well-balanced footprint. The aesthetic as you come up on the site here really is coming together well. It's got a great curb appeal. And one of the things that we're adding to this, you can see this pink layer on the left and the bare brick over here, this is the air and vapor barrier that goes on below the cavity wall. Behind that you've got the CMU. And then in the front you've got the face brick being laid. And this is a picture from early this morning when I was at the site. And you can see that that work is progressing very well. On the inside here, what you're seeing, what's been kind of neat the last couple of weeks is the pace at which things are developing on the inside. We've been looking at a bunch of dirt, steel, concrete for about 2.5, 3 months as it's been coming out of the ground. Now things are really accelerating. You're seeing these areas come together. The second area here, Terry and I learned a wonderful new construction term called clear story light. That's one of these windows here. And basically it's a light that provides that ambient light from the outside into the center of the building. And any of the light that goes around the perimeter, it's not a light, it's a window. But they call windows lights, right? And then here you're seeing the soffit entries into a couple of the kindergarten rooms. And sheetrock and insulated ducts, so you're getting a very real sense of these spaces coming together and how very nice they're going to be once they're complete. This is our 2-week look ahead from Brad Schuster at the Lonsdale site. And you'll see last week they hit their marks pretty well. It was a great week for construction. It was clear, reasonably dry. We didn't have rain, of course, until over the weekend. And as we look at what's going on this week, you can see that they're right on schedule there with the exterior brick being laid up. We chose to move that, as I reminded you guys last time around, to the spring season so that we could get good sunshine, good adhesion, and good air vapor and water barrier separation. And then also it allows us to wrap in those final elements of the roof system and the parapet. They're painting walls. It's going to be later in this week because you saw the sheetrock getting done, right, in those classrooms. And that's going to be going right ahead all through the majority of next week as well. At our TCU High School site, this was a really exciting walkthrough today. You can see that they're leveling the ag shop floor in preparation to do the underground plumbing, underground piping, electrical underground, and then very soon we hope to be pouring that concrete pad. This is a view into the PLTW classroom space, which is just adjacent to that ag shop. You can see the red walls through there in the background. And this is the large overhead door to the exterior, south side of that ag shop. And this is how the outside is coming together at the high school. So for a long time, this thing was wrapped up in plastic bags, right? And it wasn't very visible to us. Now you can see that exterior brickwork coming together with the precast concrete. Again, this is the primary hallway entry. We've got the PLTW classrooms here, and then of course our classroom wing directly to the east on this side. And this is a view from the west side to the east side of the instructional wing and the classroom area.
That's where the walls will be removed and put back in, all that jazz, right?
That's correct. Yeah, these are all movable walls. So the majority of the time this will be just a large open space for really going to be good for instruction and impactful. This was surprising to see. Yeah, so they dug a big hole in the middle of our auditorium And as you see here, they're forming up what is going to become a monolithic pour. Learned another new term this week from Keith Stockman. We're choosing to do a monolithic pour with a vapor barrier underneath, because you can see that the groundwater, we did run into a little bit of stuff there. And we expected to meet it at some point in time. Of course, now during thaw, it didn't disappoint us. So they're going to put a heavy-duty vapor barrier and just basically build that one system as a bathtub and set it in there. We've got over in this area, you can see this drainage pipe, and then that goes right to the sump well. So there's tiling on the inside and the outside, and around that monolithic pour, that's going to make sure that that stays watertight. And this is the view towards what would be the dressing rooms area, the green room in the back, and of course the scene shop would be over to your right here.
So I'm sorry,
entirely different than what we saw last.
What is that for?
That's for the orchestra pit.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and then where you see the gentleman there working with that matrix, the rebar they call that.
Uh-huh.
They basically pour the concrete in there and steel reinforce them. Mm-hmm. On this side of it would then be the proscenium edge of the stage. So you're looking at that orchestra pit that goes out. Now you're wondering where are all the seats going to go? This is the farthest extent of that footing, and it's a massive footing because of the size of that. So you're looking at an orchestra pit that really ends about here, and then you draw a line straight up from that form, and you're going to get the area where the audience seating is then. So it's going to be a thing of beauty, you guys. Really neat. Does anybody want to make a computer font out of Mr. Zobek's writing?
Yeah.
Is that not impeccable?
If anybody could do it, you could.
Yeah.
So I think you should get on
It's
there.
always fun snapping a picture of his whiteboard, because the guy really encapsulates things well. So his 2-week look-aheads are by far the game winner here. But you can see in Area A, we've got the remaining orchestra foundation, which is underway, as you saw. AHU, those are air handling units, so they're going to get a crane, large crane coming in towards the end of this week again to get that equipment up on the roof. Trench drain, rough in, we chose to defer that for the summer months so that it wasn't as intrusive for our construction trades class. Great idea by Keith Stockman to kind of temporarily stub that up and then open that process up during the summer months when, again, it's less intrusive. Exterior brick, you're seeing that progress really well. Now, as you guys walk by here, the courtyard on your way out, you're going to see that pinkish kind of goo on the outside. By the time you're here for our next meeting, that's all going to be brick exterior. So that is going to take shape very nicely here in the next coming weeks. We have some roofing going on in zone by zone as those zones become available. Of course, the last conversation about the auditorium was drawing the frost out of the ground. Overnight, Wednesday into Thursday, we're going to be putting that frost back into the ground. Kidding.
You're not.
But yeah, good progress. We've had 3 formal construction meetings, 4 including our initial meeting on the Montgomery ECC site. You're seeing here the primary excavation up to that old building. Looks kind of mushy, doesn't it? Yeah. They are pumping the water out, and those footings, believe it or not, started today. So they're going to form those up, and they're going to get that going immediately. So this is basically water accumulation from over the weekend rains and stuff. So nothing serious. But that hole is dug, so to speak, and we're going to start aggressively moving forward on that addition. So this is going to be the area where the secured entry and the ADA accessible entry is on this side of the Early Childhood Center. Does anyone have any questions, thoughts?
Carl, looking at, the Lonsdale and then the high school auditorium, are we ahead of schedule, right on schedule? What are they telling us?
Yeah, high school auditorium classrooms, Steve and Jim are telling us we're about a week behind. Definitely gainable time, because when we get multiple trades under the roof and the roof is sealed up and we don't have those limiting parameters, we're going to be able to move those things along quickly enough to gain time in the summer months. The main thing is buttoning up the roof, keeping the water out so that we can get that interior work moving ahead. And then you can have 4 tradesmen in there at the same time. So we're hoping to get some of that time back. Lonsdale's doing actually quite well. Brad had a punch list for our masons that he's checking off. That's his fine detail of getting everything right, making sure that everything looks as it should and is ready to receive paint and ready to receive sealer. So those items, if you saw in his 2-week look ahead, are checked off the list pretty well and moving ahead really well. So, yeah, the schedules are good. The schedules are good. The schedules, you know, that we're going to have to watch very closely, Dale, are the La Center HVAC project and the EC program. Once we start doing that demolition and making that space available, we're going to be, you know, very, very aggressive on meeting those timelines and making sure that people get in there to do the work they need to in timely fashion. So, very compressed window, even though we've added some time in the summer. So, good questions. And any others?
Thank you. I appreciate seeing this.
Thank you.
Depending upon weather and everything, there is a chance at our next board work session, March 22nd, that we might be able to do a little bit of a walk-in tour of some of the site here. Mr. Zovek said that he'd be willing to do that. You'd want to bring your old shoes because, again, concrete will not be poured, so you are going to get some dirty shoes in there. But we'll see if we can't be able to get some first eyes on it.
We need hard hats.
Gotta have hard hats. He seemed like it'd be okay because there wouldn't be other contractors in there.
Thank you for those updates. Next item is board member representation at graduation.
Yes, it is sneaking up on us. It's Friday, May 24th at 7 o'clock. We do typically have 2 to 3 board members who hand out diplomas and get to shake each graduate's hand. And so hopefully you brought your calendars or took a look at things to see whom you want to represent the board this year.
I would like to do that on the 24th.
I will if no one else has family or friends or.
I love doing it, but I really want to make sure I do it next year. So if someone wants it this year.
I mean, I'm available too, but
Anyone have relatives or very, very close friends or?
I need to do it next year. So.
Yeah.
that sounds good.
Hold your spot.
Marcia and I are kind of on the same schedule, so.
All right. Well, Dale, Ashley, and Krista?
Sounds good.
Or Kevin, were you wanting to, or you're putting your bid in for next year?
Nope, I'm good. I've done it many, many times. I'm good.
You had it for your daughter, right?
I've done it several times, yes.
I know, but I'm just saying for especially.
Yeah.
All right.
Those two.
It's a lot of fun.
I did it last year, I think, with you.
That's right.
It was fun, yeah, I liked it.
Next year.
Oh, that's
All right.
Yeah, you should.
Sounds good, thank you.
That's kind of what I figured.
Okay.
Next item, enrollment update. Superintendent Price, please.
Yes, thank you. So our monthly updates, you're going to see a similar pattern that we have seen throughout this year. We are up a little bit in our elementary. Our 5-6 is held absolute steady. Our 7-8 had steady, and our high school had a very small dip. So we are up just a little bit from before. So you can tell we've held fairly steady here though in the last few months. And again, to give a perspective of the past, this 1842 holds with our highest. The very highest we have ever had was 1844 and 1516. We continue again to be 100 students over where our very first year's TCU was.
Good deal.
Very good. Moving on to committee updates. The Finance Committee.
God, it seems like forever.
Is Jean gonna give us her
Well, we went through our adopted and see where we were sitting, and we kind of looked at what things would change for the new budget coming out that will approve here in June. We did a lot of legwork doing that kind of stuff. I can't really think of.
We talked about, the budget revision and the year 20 budget assumptions that are coming up, the bid and the timeline that coming out for the insurance committee, and then we set our next meeting date for the 22nd of April.
Do we make it for our next workshop?
Very busy, okay.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
You kind of hear it here in the
Yes,
in the
I
revised
think we
stuff.
got
Yeah.
it, right?
Thank you, Marcia, very much. Insurance Committee?
That's what we need to. Yep, so we met with the insurance committee on the 25th, and that was a bid opening. And so the committee has decided to do a second round of bids based on that. So this would be for the health insurance starting July 1, so plan years July 1 to June 30th. That is I don't know, I don't want to say the right word, but that's the information that was in those bids is obviously confidential. So I can say that we received 4 bids, and that the committee chose to go out for a second round of bids. That will be a final round, so that's the most that we can do. We're meeting again on the 11th, so we'll open that on the 11th, and that meeting will either choose or meet again to choose. So we will not, there's no going out again. Only the people who were at that original meeting on the, actually I can't remember the date, but only people who were at that meeting can be at the second meeting. And so once we accept one though, the committee members can attend. That's the main focus of those meetings. We also discussed the possibility of voluntary employee dental plans, which would be employee funded but could go through payroll deduct. So they'd be pre-tax, so that's an advantage of that. And then we also talked about changing the way that we do life, those TCU staff members who are eligible, changing the way that we do their life insurance beneficiary. Mainly not changing anything, but mainly just adding that as part of our annual open enrollment process to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information and forms. So it kind of came up at negotiations where some people said, what do I have? And I thought, I think that's a great thing to have in there. Every year as people either select their health insurance plan or choose to not go with health insurance, then they're going to complete that form if they choose. So that was the main, but the bid opening is obviously the main thing we'll meet again this week on Thursday.
And policy, I think we kind of covered.
We met last week. Pretty much all went through what you guys, or what we approved for the first readings.
Yeah, we're
briefly
working
went
on.
through those.
Trying to stay on track with the schedule of which one needs to be reviewed yearly and every 3 years. Right?
Southwest Metro, we met March 19th, and once again, moving forward, a couple of the bills that some local superintendents have been involved with. The teen parent, one where the students who might be want to take advantage of the New Beginnings classes at Southwest Metro can ride the bus with other students and not being penalized. That has moved through both the House and the Senate. The new fire drill thing is once again moved forward. And then, as we heard even tonight by Matt and Emily, the mental health bill has really started to move forward as well. Also, the idea of our school safety levies, pertaining to our buildings at the Southwest Metro, giving us the advantages of doing that and making it better for us as local school districts. We also settled the superintendent's contract at that meeting, and then the salary was established, and then a 2% increase for the following year. That superintendent contract, as far as salary, becomes a average of the superintendents of all of the 12 schools that go there and use their services.
So
Of
Dan,
course,
just to clarify that,
Yep.
is that superintendent, that is not your superintendent?
no, that is that
Just-
superintendent. So
right,
you take
so-
those 12
Yep.
superintendents,
Okay.
take whatever.
Yep, just making clear we
yes.
know that that's not Terry.
Right, no,
Okay.
that is correct. Right, that is,
Thank you.
yes, no, thank you for asking that question. And then our financial person, a business person, has moved on. He's moving on to Lakeville, and the interviewing process has taken place, and they've hired a individual who is coming out of Mankato, and I can't think of his name. It was just in one of the updates from Darren.
Yeah, I don't remember his name either.
And so very, very good group of people that they brought in. So I think we will be very, very pleased with this gentleman as well. So I think that should be all, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, sorry that we missed the Southwest Metro.
Sorry.
Sometimes I think it's right with the work session, and sometimes it's with the regular meeting.
Yeah, I know. It is. Then moving on to new business items. The first one is with Jean here, dealing with the revised budget for our school year 2018.
Great, yes, thank you. Superintendent Price, members of the board, I'm Jean Kopp, Director of Business Services for Tri-City United. Yeah, I can take that.
Okay.
Sometimes it's nice to throw it yourself.
She's so cute.
So I will, executive summary. Great, okay. So I'm requesting your approval of the FY19 revised budget for the Tri-City United School District. The basis for this budget really is the FY19 adopted budget, which was approved by the board on June 11th of 2018. And the main purpose for doing a revised budget is to reset our starting balance with our fiscal year 18 ending balance. So at the time that we make our adopted budgets, we don't know where our previous fiscal year is going to end. That's an estimate. So at this point, we obviously know that. So we reset our starting with that previous year's actuals and audited ending balance. The fiscal year 18 ending balance was better than the estimate in the 18 revised for a couple of reasons we can talk about if you have questions. So it was an improved starting point. The second reason to do a budget revision is to incorporate additional or changed information. So anything that we didn't know at the time that we made the previous budget, we incorporate in this budget. So that has also been done. So a few things I'd like to highlight about this budget, and we can go to this sheet since you're looking at it. Just to give you grounding as well. I know it gets to be a lot, but I want to be, it goes from left to right. So what you see in the far left is what is our 18 audited numbers. So those are our actuals. What you'll see in the second section is our adopted. So this is what was brought to the board and approved in June of last year. What you get to next is what it was our adopted, but with that updated starting spot. And then here is the revised that I'm bringing you today. So that'll have, again, this beginning balance that equals our ending of 18, revised revenue and expenditure numbers, and then a new ending based on those things. So that's the way to read this. Of course, we have, at this time, TCU has 5 funds. Our general fund, which is where most of our revenue expenditures come from. Our food service, which is Fund 2, our community education, which is Fund 4. Fund 6 is one that we won't always have. That's our construction fund. And Fund 7, which is our debt service fund. So this, in fiscal year 19, just a note on debt service, which is in your executive summary, but this year we only paid the interest on the new 2018A and 2018B bonds. Next year will be the first year that we pay principal and interest. So people would already be seeing that on their tax statements, because what people will pay in taxes in this year, 2019, is what will fund the school next year. So they'll see that impact now, but the school district won't get the revenue until next year. And it's designed like that because we don't want to be paying a principal until we have the funding. Oh, that's just a note on 6 and 7. If I could highlight a couple things on Fund 1. So this is a deficit budget of $780,000, which is not a big change from what I presented in June, which was a deficit budget of about $750,000. But this budget does have an estimated fund balance of 24.9%. I'll show you that. That's over here to the far right. And this budget is built with an enrollment assumption of 1,839 ADMs, adjusted daily memberships, which it calculates to 2007 adjusted pupil units. So that changes because you have 7th through 12th graders are a higher weighting in the formulas from the state. Other changes were incorporations of impacts of contracts that settled after approval of the fiscal year 19 adopted budget. And on benefits, we did see an increase in staff health insurance enrollments that have been incorporated into this as well. So those are some of the main things that changed from the previous adopted budget to this revised budget. I'll point out also that we do have spending in here of about $200,000 that is for non-repeating things. This would be our last year of the technology one-to-one initiative. So that spending is incorporated in this line. So that's something to think about when we say that it's a deficit budget, that is non-recurring spending. That is that one-time spending. Going forward, the one-to-one, the support for our technology will come out of the regular capital, or the regular technology budget. Not a lot has changed in some of the other funds. Fund 2 is similar. There was a planned equipment purchase that has been pushed out to next year, so that's reflected. Some changes to community education based on new information. Enrollments this year are very similar to last year from what I understand. And then I kind of already touched on 6 and 7. On 6, that's a tricky one for me to estimate. I'm using the architectural draft structure schedules, but should, I don't know, things get pushed up a week or back a week, or when the contractor does the pay apps, that stuff can impact it. And we will be in heavy construction season when our fiscal year is ending, which is June 30th. So that one I don't spend an enormous amount of time trying to figure out the timing on. We will be using the money on our construction, so the timing is a little bit less critical between fiscal years, so. Do you have questions? Yeah. So we will be working again with the Finance Committee on the 22nd. And that'll be focused on what we know for fiscal year 20. So fiscal year 20, we know less information because we have our biggest contract to set that will expire at the end of this fiscal year, which is our teacher contract. And then we also do not have yet any updates for the state funding, which is on a 2-year biennium. So this is the last year of that. So we are awaiting word on what that will be. So we're building, with different assumptions. The number one driver for all of this is enrollment. That's 70%, generates about 70% of our Fund 1 dollars. So that's just a really big piece of this. So, yeah.
Are we still on target and projecting pretty closely for building budgets as far as what that will be affected or anything we need to shift around?
Yeah, the building money that we have for construction can only be used on construction.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm saying we're on track for all of that and everything.
Yep.
And
We meet monthly with the, I meet monthly with the architect. We do an internal meeting with them and review any changes in estimates, which at this point is really no, if there are any change orders. We also do review spend to date on other, all the services and things. So we have what we think now is a really good way to do that. It's a very complicated. It's sort of become more complicated as we go because we are using multiple funding streams. If you remember, we have our 2018A bond, our 2018B bond. We have the state safety Safe Schools grant, excuse me. Safe Schools grant. As you know, we've committed some regular Fund 1 LTFM dollars.
That's what I was more thinking, and
Oh, yep.
remembering of pieces of that, of how that was covering some, and then, you know, some more of how that is all shifting and shaking down.
Yep, and then we have our bond proceeds as well, which we committed a portion of those to the construction as well. So we have to track all of that separately and code all of it separately, and we're kind of trying to do what we'll do is do an individual by funding source. That's how I really have to think about it, and really how like Carla and I have to work together to code these things so they're done properly. And then that will all roll up into the total amount that's being spent on the construction projects. So we're kind of looking at it. I would say the architect maybe looks from a tops down, and we look at it from a tops up, and then we bottoms up, excuse me, and then we meet in the middle and make sure that we match. Basically, it's a good way to. I think very differently than Dave, which is great because then because we have very different jobs. And then that way we can kind of check each other, reconcile.
Keeping a very close eye on it, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you for that explanation.
Yes.
Any other questions? Jean? If not, then I will entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 19 revised budget.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Ashley, second by Josh. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. Next item is the State Health Improvement Partnership. That's from Superintendent Preissler's.
Thank you. Mr. Wilbright wasn't able to be with us tonight, but did formulate this executive summary of a grant. Would not exceed $4,000 and is in support of the 2019 safety camp. I believe that we talked about that at the last board meeting as one of the highlights, and putting that together in each of our communities. It's a program where it's the educating on the hazards, as he says, in and out of the home. Be a good one for that investing in your future class that Mr. Schmidt was talking about earlier, except this is for 8 to 10-year-olds, which is always good too. So I know that in the past they've had bike helmets. I know that local law enforcement has been a part of it. Sometimes fire departments. It all varies and everything. But this would be the grant for the helmets, the bike safety, and to be able to conduct this safety grant or safety camp for our students, which is a great thing to do.
I will entertain a motion to accept the statewide health improvement partnership grant, not to succeed $4,000 for the 2019 safety camp program.
Make a motion.
Motion by Kristen,
I'll second it.
second by Marcia. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passed, 7-0. We're at that point in time. Anything else, Superintendent Preissler, that you can think of?
No, but that's the agenda, so I don't have any other items to bring forward.
I will then entertain a motion to adjourn our April 8th meeting at 7:33.
I will make that motion.
Motion by Kevin. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Ashley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passed.